currently that's what the DSM states, but 5 years from now they're going to change their mind anyway. So I think that the child is just being stubborn, that the child is just not wanting to do what you're asking.
Today we will be sharing 5 signs of mild autism.
And remember, if you have a child who's autistic, you're in good company.
Now, to start off with, there is no such thing as mild autism. We know that
It doesn't exist.
That will be a big thing, but
people get mad at us even using it. We have a son, Ezra, who's 7 years old, and he is more severely autistic. Our 3-year-old son, Simon, is more mildly autistic. Simon's official diagnosis right now is at level 1. And of course, these levels 1, 2, and 3 can vary and change throughout someone's life. But right now, he's labeled as level 1, which identifies that he needs less support than someone like Ezra, who's a level 3, which means he'll need more support. And then moderate autism will be level 2. And currently, that's what the DSM states. But 5 years from now, they're going to change their mind anyway. So moving on. The first sign is understanding and being aware of what other people can control and what they can't control. So for example, when Simon was just 2 years old, if I came to play cards with him and if I put my hand on one of his cards, he would be very upset, obviously, understandably, and he would try and move my hand. And the interesting thing is, it would take him a long time before he'd look up at me. I remember when Simon was being diagnosed and the psychologist actually did this exact same thing. He tried to move the doctor's hand again and again, and then about 5 seconds of failing at moving his hand, he looked up and made eye contact with the doctor. And then that's when he moved his hand. And so in this case, Simon learned that, if I make eye contact with that person, maybe the hand will move. But a neurotypical child will usually not try and move the hand. They'll just look right up at the person, making that connection naturally that the person is in control of that hand. This is just one example, but I find it very useful because you can try it with your own kids and see what their response is. It was helpful for me to see this because even though I saw Simon making eye contact with the doctor, he pointed out that this was a learned skill and was not coming naturally, teaching me that Simon actually is autistic, but not as severe as Ezra, who won't look me in the eye no matter how long he tries to move my hand.
And that was something that the doctor tried again and again, like several times, like over and over, right? As he would just try similar things, blocking Simon from doing something.
Yeah,
and seeing
whatever he wanted to do,
and seeing how long it takes before he actually looks at him and actually engages through eye contact.
It's some kind of communication. Hey, move your hand, or hey, you're in my way.
Yeah, and he does learn fairly quickly. But again, it's not something that naturally comes.
Yeah, it's a learned skill.
Like it would, yeah.
We have one son who is not autistic but has ADHD. And so we actually made a video comparing some examples of our 3 sons. One with autism, one with ADHD and autism, and one with ADHD. And that movie you can see right here. 3 signs that your child has both ADHD and autism.
Okay, so the second sign is eye contact. So this is something that can be learned, but again, it's not coming naturally. When he was like 2, if you'd say, "Hi, Simon," and start talking to him and stuff, he usually wouldn't ever look up at you.
No, unless he was highly motivated with something in your hand and he was trying to get it. Then he'd be like, maybe I'm supposed to look them in the eye, that type of thing.
Yeah, the therapy that he's been doing every day has helped really a ton with that.
Yeah, to help motivate him to be more social and to...
Yeah, and because he's doing it daily and he's totally changing and he's learning quick, which is cool.
When our son Ezra was a baby, we noticed right away there was no eye contact. But when Simon was a baby, we noticed, he would make eye contact if we'd make enough noise or get his attention or be loud or have a toy that he likes or something, then he would look at us. And so I was like, he has great eye contact. Now looking back, I'm like, only when he was motivated for a certain reason would he have that eye contact. It wasn't natural for him. But Simon is learning really quickly. And so that is one sign of more mild autism, is he's catching on, but it's not a natural thing. It's something that he's learning. And with Simon learning eye contact, we of course don't want to force things on him like, you have to look like a neurotypical child, or you have to be this way so that you fit in. We just want him to learn certain skills so that he can use them if he chooses to as he grows up.
It's not that we like want him to do that so he's uncomfortable or whatever, but it's helping him to realize that it's something that will help him socially as he grows up, and so he can have that tool and that skill as he grows and develops. So.
And of course, this isn't just the only 5 signs of mild autism. So please put in the comments some more signs, whether it's in your children or yourself or someone that you know, because the more information that we get out there, the more understanding there will be for people on the spectrum. A third sign for mild autism is stimming. Stimming is a self-regulatory behavior. Sometimes it involves awkward or repetitive movements, and sometimes it doesn't. Stimming is actually something that I think everyone does, whether you're autistic or not. I mean, I know people who will bite the inside of their cheek, who will their mind will start running lines on every corner and that's what I do. And so a lot of people will stim, shake their leg,
Twirl the pen.
Twirl their pen. I mean, there's so many different things, If you see your child stim and then stop stimming because of a reaction from someone else, maybe someone's looking at them, wondering what they're doing, or having some kind of negative response from another person or in public, and then you see your child stop, that's one way to mask autistic traits. And that is definitely a sign of mild autism when you have a child stim and then notice that behavior is getting unwanted attention. And I think it's important to teach children tools and different skill sets to help them stim in different ways. That way your child can choose which way to stim in different situations that they're comfortable with, which is a totally natural thing to do. And so keep that in mind when you're helping your child learn how to stim in an effective way and in a way that won't hurt themselves or hurt anyone else.
Simon, another stimming thing that he'll do is he plays with Holly's hair. So right now he's young enough to where he doesn't care, right, still, but
3 years old.
Yeah.
He's not noticing.
But I think soon enough he will start to mask that and start to, okay, it's kind of weird for me to play in mommy's hair. I think that he'll get that and he'll learn that. However, Ezra, he stims and he doesn't care or know
he doesn't seem to care or notice.
Yeah.
If anyone reacts to
his stimming, his screaming, so he'll scream.
Because he's loud.
Yeah.
He'll get a lot of people's attention if we're in a public place,
yeah.
And he seems to not care at all. And so he's more severe on the spectrum. But Simon would notice.
Yeah.
Simon would notice, especially if he started playing with my hair, when he's older and his friend said something like, "Why are you doing that?" He might step back and go, "Oh, is that a weird thing?" That's something that he would notice.
So that'd be more of a mild, autism.
When I see my autistic boys stim, they stim in certain ways that really help regulate what they're dealing with. So if they are kind of in sensory overload, my autistic son Ezra might flap his hands. Our son Simon, who has mild autism, he will run from one corner to the house to the other. That's kind of the way he stims. And he will do that for a long time, and that's a repetitive movement that we actually realized and noticed when we were living in an RV.
And if you're wondering, if you're new to our channel and you don't know about our adventure, Ezra actually had a near-death experience, and we sold our house, we moved into an RV and decided to focus more on experiences. So we went to all the national parks with our kids.
We did that.
And it was a wild, crazy adventure.
Crazy.
So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because we are uploading. We got a lot of content, a lot of fun things that Ezra and Simon did on that trip that we're going to be sharing as well as we traveled all these national parks. So
yeah, we always include our kids, all of our kids. We would, make accommodations for them if they needed to for safety reasons, but we always wanted to include them. They saw each national park just like all the other kids. So don't miss out on those videos. We upload daily of our unique normal.
the fourth sign is not noticing hunger or thirst.
What Simon will do is that when we're all sitting down for dinner, and he'll have food that he likes on his plate, but a lot of times he won't want to sit and eat with us, especially if he's really distracted with cars.
Yeah, he'll just keep playing, and then eventually, later in the night, when he's finally actually starving, he'll run to the fridge and open the fridge and want food, at that point. But
yeah, his hunger and thirst, it doesn't bother him until it gets to the point where it's like, I'm so thirsty, it's even hard for me to communicate how thirsty I am. That is a sign of mild autism. When our son Simon finally realizes he's thirsty or hungry, it's an intense thing because he's waited quite a while.
And one thing with Ezra still is he doesn't ever really get to that point of like, oh, I am hungry and thirsty and that's why I feel bad. Like he'll just get super cranky, ticked, start crying.
He has a hard time knowing the connection between his feeling and the cause.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he's still not to the point where, we'll just know if he starts getting really cranky, okay, has he had food? Has he had water? Right? And then we'll just give him those things. And because he'll just get mad about everything and we'll think, like, why doesn't he like this toy anymore or whatever? And it's nothing to do with the toy. It's just that he's hungry and he's thirsty, but he hasn't made that connection yet that this is because I'm hungry and thirsty. Yeah. Whereas Simon, he's gotten the hang of it more to where, like, he'll figure it out. He'll just go to the fridge and get it before he gets to that level of complete meltdown like Ezra will.
Like Ezra. As far as what we can see with Ezra, we can't tell if Ezra's made the connection. And maybe he even has, but he can't communicate that to us for sure. And so and he won't go and do it himself. There's
sometimes maybe that he does, but I think a lot of times he doesn't. He'll forget, and we'll just be like, even though dinner's not ready, Ezra's eating first.
That's right.
So
doesn't matter if dinner's ready or not.
He's hangry. That's what it is, right?
Yes. We don't.
He gets hangry.
And every person gets hangry, like autistic or not. Our fifth sign of mild autism is delayed processing. This is something that I definitely see in Simon. An example of delayed processing is perhaps your child understands, a simple command like go get your shoes or go get your backpack or take this to the trash, but maybe it takes a little while for them to do it or to understand or process what you said. Just the other day, I asked Simon to go get a plate for me. It was just around the corner. He could see the plate, I could see the plate, and I was like, Simon, can you get that plate for me? And he looked at me, and then he went over to the plate, and he kind of looked at the plate for a second, and I said, give it to Mama. I mean, he's 3 years old, keep that in mind. And he looked at me, he looked back at the plate, and then he got it and then brought it to me. And I was like, good job. That for me was definitely a good example of delayed processing. He understood and he really desired it and, to do what I asked him to do. He wanted to do it, but he had to think about it just a little bit longer. And what's great is that as parents, we can understand that need and we can give them a little bit of extra time. That way we can help them in those situations, not be too hard on themselves and not to add more stress to the situation, but just be patient and let them think about, what was it that Mom told me? Oh yeah, the trash. Oh yeah, that's right. And it might just take a little bit longer. And of course, this is going to look very different with everyone on the spectrum. Maybe they need a little bit of time to understand a joke. Maybe your child will laugh at a joke later, 5 seconds later than everyone else. That's a good example of delayed processing. One thing that can really help kids as they learn how to process things is when you give a direct order or ask a question, maybe just ask one question at a time. So for example, instead of saying, well, do you want to do that? Or do you want to do this? Or what do you think about this? You could say, do you want to do that? And then they can think about it and give you yes or no. And then you can say, okay, do you want to do that? And hopefully that makes sense, but it's a lot easier to process one question instead of 3 questions. And
I do that all the time. So
he's guilty of it.
Yeah, so it's hard to just
it's hard to change the way you communicate, but
Holly's always telling me it's just one thing. Just ask one question, one thing, because I always ask usually 2. Do you want to do this or go over there? That makes it so much harder to process, right?
Yeah, it does.
So you've got to just one thing at a time. So do you want eggs? Get that answer. Then the next thing, rather than, do you want eggs and bacon and, you know.
And toast, and do you want, like, what do you want on your toast? And they're just like,
That's
okay,
too much
you
to
just asked me
process,
5
yeah.
questions. I think that if parents don't know about it, they might think that the child is just being stubborn, that the child is just not wanting to do what you're asking. And if it's really delayed processing, then it's not that at all. And a little bit more patience can really help them and support them so that they don't add stress to the situation. So if you haven't seen the video where we talk in detail about Simon's diagnosis of mild autism, be sure to check that out right here.